Okay, let's go ahead and begin. Hello to all of our newly admitted tridents for fall 2022. On behalf of the International Students and Programs Office, also known as ISPO, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. My name is Laura Page, and I'm an International Student Advisor here at ISPO. A few housekeeping items before we begin today. First, you're on listen-only mode. You can hear us, but we cannot hear you. Next, we're recording. This webinar will be posted at iWebinars.ucsd.edu. And lastly, please use the Q&A box to get your questions answered. Even if we aren't able to answer them today through chat or during our Q&A at the end of our session, there are a variety of ways to contact with ISPO to get those questions answered. Visit icontact.ucsd.edu to connect with us after today's session. We're happy to welcome you to our session, Know the Rules for F-1 Students. And I'd like to introduce Pauline de Guzman, the Assistant Director of Student Services here in ISPO. And with that, I'll hand it over to Pauline.
All right, thank you, Laura. Hello, everyone. I see a lot of familiar names in the participants list. That's really, really good to see many of familiar faces today. As Laura mentioned, my name is Pauline de Guzman. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm the Assistant Director of Student Services here at the International Students and Programs Office, also known as ISPO. We have a lot to cover today, so we are going to jump in. Today's session is relevant to students who are inside of the US or who plan to study inside of the US for the fall quarter. Today, we'll talk about your support system on campus. We'll review your immigration documents together and perform what's called a document self-check. We'll also discuss F-1 and J-1 regulations you need to know about during your study here in the US, and also review resources for travel and emergencies. Now, throughout the session and our time together today, I may ask you some questions, so please do pay attention. You can locate the raise hand icon on your screen and you can stay engaged. Now, it's really nice to meet all of you, as I mentioned earlier. It's been a really rough last couple of years, so we're so excited to meet so many of you in person, hopefully, and the next coming weeks as many of you travel to the US and get settled here on campus. Our team is made up of about 20 friendly advisors, administrative support, and student assistants. ISPO can advise you on understanding your immigration status, rules for working on and off campus, traveling, and how to navigate living in the US and acclimating to campus life. We also offer fun programs and events to help you adjust to studying and living in San Diego, meet other international students and domestic students within the Triton community, and really to create that best experience while studying here at UC San Diego. Now, ISPO is not the only office on campus who will help you during your program. If you are a graduate student, can I see graduate students raise hands? Nice, lots of you. You'll want to get to know your graduate coordinator within your department. They will help you to understand how to navigate making academic progress during your program. Can I see hands for our undergrads? Woohoo, lots of you here today, great. So you'll want to familiarize yourselves with your college academic advising office. Now, in addition to your graduate coordinator or college advisor, there are other units on campus that you can rely on as well to help you and as a part of your support system. You might rely on professors in your classes or faculty within your department. Now, sometimes asking one question, such as, how can I find a summer internship, requires that you communicate with multiple units on campus. You might want to ask ISPO about the employment authorization part, your graduate coordinator or your college advisor about enrollment in internship classes, perhaps the Career Center for how to find positions off campus within your industry, and then talk to your faculty and department about other opportunities within your department. So as you can see, ISPO is not the only unit here to help support you during your program. Now, we're going to do what is called a document self-check together. So if you have these documents, I'll give you a moment to go ahead and take them out. Okay. If you were able to register and attend today's session, meet ISPO and understand your immigration documents, I think that was earlier today. You can access that recording when it's available, and it can give you a more in-depth look at your immigration documents. Today, we won't go too much in depth, but I do want to make sure you know what to look for when reviewing your immigration documents. Okay. So I hope most of you have gathered these documents. Now they're in front of you, ready to review. Okay. So to test your knowledge about your immigration documents, let's watch a short video.
I think I can throw away past immigration documents like my I-20 and DS 2019, if I get updated ones.
Okay, what do you all think? Can you throw away old documents? That is false. So as we've learned today, your immigration documents are extremely important. For those of you who raised your hands, I'll clarify again, never discard any documents. You'll use them during your program to apply for work authorization, maybe a driver's license, a bank account, a social security card, and other benefits. So as we've learned, please keep all copies of your Form I-20 and DS 2019s from ISPO, and also every institution you've ever attended in the US. You will never know when you'll need them, okay? Another good tip is to keep all of your documents valid and up to date. We're going to learn how to look at each document so that you know how to keep it valid and up to date today. Another tip is to take pictures of your documents. Keep digital copies on your phone so that if you ever lose anything and you need to reference it, you've got a digital copy there right on your cell phone. And lastly, it's important that you do perform this document self-check each time you enter the US. Some updates might be made to your immigration documents, so it's important every time you re-enter the US after vacation, or even after your first time entering this fall term, double check, make sure everything's in order so that you have a valid status in the US, okay? All right, so let's go ahead, let's move on and let's do a document self-check. The first document is your passport. If you have it, please turn to the page with your photo and biographical information. Right. Now, the first thing you'll want to do is make sure that your biographical information is correct. Is your name spelled correctly? Is all the information on here accurate? Now, something else you will want to note is the date that your passport expires. Your passport must be valid for at least 6 months into the future at all times. So it's really important that we keep that passport up to date. Note that date. Something I like to do is I like to input a calendar reminder, even if it's years from now on my phone maybe, or a calendar, a personal calendar that I use so that I know, about 6 months out before that passport expires, I need to go get it renewed. This process can take some time, so renewing it as soon as possible is really important. Your passport can be renewed inside of the US or outside of the US at your home country's embassy or consulate. Okay. And I want to remind all participants today, you should see a Q&A tool at the bottom of your Zoom panel. If you have any questions or want us to clarify anything, please do use that Q&A tool. We will have some time at the end of the presentation for some questions. Okay, so the next document that I'd like to go over is your F-1 or J-1 visa. Okay, this page should be located inside of your passport. So go ahead and flip to that page. You can think of your F-1 or J-1 visa like a key. So just like a key, you only need a valid visa to enter the US. However, once you're inside of the US or once you're inside of the house, it's okay if your visa expires, just like a key. You don't need to carry it with you because you're already inside the house. As long as you are maintaining your status, and we'll talk a little bit later about what that means, what it means to maintain your status, you can remain in the US even with an expired visa. Okay. Now, there are a couple things to note on your visa. Again, make sure that your biographical information is correct, and then you want to note the number of entries. The number of entries means that during the validity of your visa, this is the number of times you can seek re-entry to the US. If it says an S, that means you can only enter the US a single time during the validity of your visa. If it has a notation of M, which most students will have, then that means you may enter multiple times during the validity of your visa. Note the visa type or class, which should say F-1 or J-1, and also the expiration date here. And something to highlight here is that the expiration date, it should be valid at the time of re-entry to the US. Again, just like a key, you need it to be valid when you are entering the US. Okay. So here's the difference between your passport and your visa page. Unlike your passport page, your visa can only be renewed outside of the US. So just like a key, you can't get a key to enter your house from inside because that's not how it works, right? So you need to go outside of the US, and only outside at a US embassy or consulate can you apply for a renewal of your F-1 or J-1 visa, right? So go ahead and read this question here. I want to know, what would you do? You're inside of the US and you notice that your F-1 visa is expiring in 2 months, which is in the middle of our fall quarter. Can you remain in the US legally? If you think yes, go ahead and raise your hand. Can you remain in the US with an expired visa? Okay, I see lots and lots of hands raised. That's great. You're all correct. So yes, as I mentioned earlier, just because your visa is expiring, it does not mean you need to leave the US to renew it. You're okay to stay in the US as long as you are maintaining your status. Okay, great. Okay, the next document we'll review is your Form I-20 if you're an F-1 student, or your Form DS 2019 if you're a J-1 student. So go ahead and pull those out. F-1 and J-1 students are obligated to keep their Form I-20 and DS 2019 up to date. You want to locate the program end date, which is in the middle of the first page of your I-20 and about mid left section of your DS 2019 for J-1 students. You want to take a look at that program end date, which is an expected program end date. Okay. It is flexible, meaning if you need more time, you need to apply for an extension before that program end date. But if you finish your program early and you don't need that much time to complete it, then you should come and talk to us as well. And we can shorten that I-20 end date or DS 2019 end date to reflect your true program end date. In addition, you want to take a look at your program level, major, if you ever change major, or perhaps you change your name anytime during your program here. All of this information is important for you to submit a change or request to update the change within 10 days of any change by submitting a change request through ISPO's iPortal. Many of you who requested your Form I-20s from UC San Diego for the first time or DS 2019 should be familiar with ISPO's iPortal, which is where you will log in to submit requests to make changes to your immigration documents. Okay. Okay, the next document will be your Form I-94. Now, you will only have this document once you've arrived to the US. Each time that you enter the US, at the port of entry, they will record your entry and there will be an electronic record of your travel inside of the US. Now, if you're currently outside of the US right now, you should not have a Form I-94 unless you've entered the US prior. This is also known as your arrival departure record, and it will show your class of admission if you entered on F-1 or J-1 status, your name, last date of entry, and also it'll show something called an admit until date. This is important to highlight. Once you generate your Form I-94 by logging on to i94.cbp.dhs.gov, it's going to ask you for your biographical information and you'll input that there. It will then generate your electronic Form I-94. It'll look something like this. Okay, you'll be able to print it. It's a good idea to print it and make sure that you have a digital copy as well. Now, when you look at this admit until date, it should always state D/S. This means that you can stay inside of the US as long as you are maintaining your F1 or J1 status. And you can stay here for the duration of that entire status as long as you're following all the rules and regulations, which again, we'll go over today. Okay. It's important that after you generate your I-94, if you see your class of admission is incorrect, perhaps your name is incorrect, or there is a date next to the place for admit until date, please contact ISPO. It's important that we get that corrected as soon as possible. Okay. So the one last thing to be mindful of, this information isn't necessarily shown on your Form DS 2019 or Form I-20, but it is a part of your SEVIS record. So this is a part of our reporting requirements. Whenever you establish residency, you need to report it to ISPO through the Triton link. Now, any changes to your current address or permanent address abroad, or maybe emergency contacts, you want to report within 10 days of any change. Okay, again, this is not listed on your Form I-20, but it is important for you to update whenever you do make a change. You can log on to Triton Link by visiting intercultural.ucsd.edu. And once you sign in, you look for the tool to edit your current address or mailing address, and there should be a way for you to enter a foreign address as well for your permanent address there. So please do take the time to update those accordingly. Okay. Okay, so we have actually finished reviewing all of our immigration documents. If you have any questions, please do use the Q&A tool. We can address those at the end here. Now, I have one very important reminder for all of you. If you have already arrived to the US, please log into the iportal.ucsd.edu and submit a request called the check-in form. Now, once you submit the check-in, then you will have to upload your Form I-94, which we just reviewed today. So you cannot submit the check-in until you have arrived to the US. But this is a very important thing for you to do, because once you have submitted the check-in and shown proof that you are currently located in the US and have updated your current address so we know you're here, we will activate your SEVIS record. That tells the US government that you have physically arrived, you're enrolled in classes, and you are maintaining your F1 or your J1 status. So please do submit your check-in upon arrival. If you are unable to arrive due to visa or travel delays, please do submit a new admit I-20 or DS 2019 amendment request so that we can adjust your SEVIS record and immigration documents to a future program start date. I would also encourage many of you who need additional visa support due to travel delays to talk to your college or your departments for ways to adjust if you are facing those kinds of issues this quarter. Okay. Okay. So those are your immigration documents, and you all now know how to conduct a document self-check. So again, as a reminder, you should do that every single time you enter the US to make sure all your documents are in order. So now let's go ahead and let's move on to knowing and understanding the rules as an F-1 or a J-1 student in the US. Many of you will hear this term time and time again, maintaining your immigration status. But what does that mean? What does it actually mean to maintain my status, to hold active status, or to be in valid F-1 status? What might it mean if someone says you have fallen out of status or you're not maintaining your status? Okay. When ISPO first issues you your Form DS 2019 or Form I-20 from UC San Diego, everyone will hold what is called an initial status I-20 or CVIS record. Okay. This means that you are preparing to arrive to the US and start your program. And if you look at your Form I-20 or Form DS 2019, you'll see that there's a program start date listed there. Now, on your program start date, if you have arrived to the US and you've submitted the check-in request in iPortal, then ISPO will go ahead and we will activate your I-20 or DS 2019. Again, that means that you're physically in the US, you've submitted the check-in, you have a valid I-94, and that you are getting ready to start your program or have started classes. Now, your status will remain in active status as long as you are following all the rules and reporting requirements that we're going to talk about today, which I'm sure you all will. Okay. And if you do not follow the rules, which I know not many of you will do, if you follow all the rules and requirements, you should be fine. But for some students who may not, then you might receive a message from our office stating that you have fallen out of status. If that does happen, no worries. We are here to support you to understand how to get back in status. But again, we'll talk about all the rules and requirements today so you will know how not to get into this situation. Your status will remain active all the way through your last date of enrollment in classes. After your last date of enrollment in your very final quarter, F-1 students have what is called a 60-day grace period, while our J-1 students have a 30-day grace period. During this grace period, you finish all of your coursework and it's time for you to plan for next steps. You might want to apply to work after graduation, maybe transfer to graduate school or start a new program at a new school. You can also leave the US, pack up all of your things and prepare to leave, or you can change to a different non-immigrant status while remaining in the US. So this grace period is a time for you to figure out what your next step is after your program of study. Okay. So students who do take action in their grace period basically repeat the cycle. You can go back to initial status with a different school and get activated again. So that is what it means to maintain your status. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at some rules and regulations that you need to follow during your time here. Oops, go back one. All right, so we're gonna go over these 5 basic rules to maintain your immigration status here at UCSD. The first is enrolling full-time. Second is making timely updates to your I-20 or DS 2019. The third is maintaining your academic standing and doing well in your classes. The fourth is following federal rules and regulations. And the fifth is making sure that you have proper work authorization. Okay, so this section here will have a few videos, so pay attention and let's learn a little bit more about full-time enrollment at UCSD. Let's wait for this to load really quickly. Okay, well, the internet is not cooperating with me today, but that's okay. Let's see if the next video will play for us a little bit later. So the point of this rule and regulation is that you should enroll and remain enrolled in a minimum of 12 units every academic quarter. This is fall, winter, and spring. Our summers are considered a vacation or a break, so students do not need to enroll. You can hang out on the beach or go home to your home countries to visit family and friends, or stay in the US and just have a good time with new friends that you've made here. So summer enrollment is not required. However, during the academic year, fall, winter, and spring, a minimum of 12 units each quarter is required. If you need to take less than 12 units, you need to apply for something called a reduced course load. This is also through ISPO's iPortal, and there are only specific reasons in which you can take less than 12 units while maintaining your status. There may be academic reasons, which is usually in your first year of study as you acclimate to US teaching methods and just getting used to the quarter system at UC San Diego. There might be medical reasons if you experience any during your program. And in your very final quarter, if you only need one class to graduate, you can also take less units there. What's important to note is that you should not drop below 12 units until you have received authorization for a reduced course load from ISPO. Okay, so really important, make sure that you have those 12 units. And I know many students ask, what if I'm waitlisted for 4 units, but I'm enrolled in 8? Unfortunately, waitlisted courses are not counted towards the 12 units minimum. So you want to make sure that you are enrolled in 12 units total. Okay, great. Okay, let's see if the next video will play for us. Okay, our next video does not want to play for us either. That's okay. That'll save us a little bit of time. When going over your immigration documents, you want to locate again that program end date or that the program end date on your I-20. Again, just because it says that your program end date is June 30th of 2025 doesn't mean you can hang out if you have extra time on your I-20. It's only an expected program end date. So if you actually finish earlier than what is listed on your I-20, then you've automatically entered your grace period. So making sure that you keep that updated I-20 and that program end date up to date is important. Again, taking less than 12 units, or if you're taking a gap quarter, if you need a break, if you're ever applying for work authorization, changing majors, maybe changing status, or if you are thinking about withdrawing from UC San Diego and transferring to a different institution in the US, these are all changes to your immigration documents. So come and talk to ISPO about how to properly make these updates. Most of these updates you can learn about on our website, but if you're not sure, you're always welcome to come and talk to an advisor about these changes that you'd like to make. Okay. The third rule is excelling with integrity. So academic integrity violations, which essentially means if you are caught for cheating or not doing your own work, they have very serious impacts on your immigration status, and it's quite rash. So if you are subject to any of these kinds of academic violations, then you're not eligible to continue enrollment at UC San Diego. And if you don't have enrollment, then essentially you cannot maintain your immigration status. Once a student is subject, there's a very tight period of about a couple of weeks where you then need to take action to either transfer to a different institution or perhaps depart the US. So we really at all times remind students to please review your course syllabus and understand what is expected of you when collaborating with classmates or conducting research. Those who are subject to suspension can face 1 quarter or even a full year academic suspension, which is a lot of time, to take away from your program. So please talk to your faculty, talk to your instructors about how to excel with integrity within your classes. Okay. I do apologize. These videos are really fun, but they're not working for us today. Okay, the fourth rule here is essentially understanding that the rules and regulations in the US might be different from your home country. So in some countries abroad, the legal age to purchase and consume alcohol is 18. However, in the US, it is not 18, it is 21. So while things might differ in your home country and in the US, it's important to just take note of those differences. In addition, there are what we call state laws, which apply to each state individually. And there are also federal laws, which apply to all 50 states. So an example that I like to use is the use of medical marijuana, okay? Although it is legal in the state of California to purchase and partake in recreational use of marijuana, it is not legal in all 50 states, which makes it a state law and not a federal law. Now, regardless of what state you are in as an international student, you will always be subject to federal laws. So although you're in California, and though it might be recognized as a state law here, if you are ever found to possess medical marijuana because you are an international student, you may face some troubles because you are subject to federal laws. So just some things to take note of as differences as you learn and acclimate to living in the US. Okay. Okay. Let's see if this one works.
Now that I have a social security card, I can work anywhere, anytime.
Okay, what do you all think? If you have a social security card, can you work anywhere, anytime? Let me see those hands. Okay, so this myth is definitely false. I'm so happy this video worked. This is one of my favorite ones. But what's important here to understand is many of you may receive or already have a social security number. Just because you have that number, it doesn't mean you can just give it to any employer and start working. Before you start any type of work in the US, you need to find out what kind of authorization you might need. It's really important to not work until you have that proper work authorization. We won't go into detail about work authorization. Please do register for our Working in the US sessions during orientation to learn more about employment for undergrad and grad students in the US. But if you want to visit iwork.ucsd.edu, you can explore different types of employment available to you during and also after your program. Okay. Okay. So those are the top 5 rules really that I think is important for all of our international students to understand to maintain your status. I want to briefly go over traveling and just some resources here so that you're aware of it, as many of you will begin to travel to the US or might plan to already go home for winter break to see family and loved ones. A great website, really easy to remember, is itravel.ucsd.edu. On this website, you can learn about what documents you need to travel internationally, also domestic travel. If you also would like to visit our neighboring countries, Canada or Mexico, for short visits, there's also information there. We'll let you know about what documents to carry in order to seek re-entry into the US. And we also have what is called a travel signature, which is required on your Form I-20 or DS 2019. So you can learn more about traveling through this website. Okay. Another handy tool, if you go to our orientation website, on our contact us page, we have a download button here for our emergency contact card. A really handy document to have. It looks something like this. You can download it and keep it on your phone. We have a bunch in our office also if anyone wants to stop by and grab one and stick in your wallet. But what it has is some tips if you are ever detained by US Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, if you're ever arrested by the police, and also if you need to call anybody. During hours, during the weekends and holidays, there is a direct number here, and it will directly route to somebody on our team to help with any immigration needs. Okay, so again, really handy to have. Make sure that you download that and keep that somewhere you will remember. Okay. Our general website is iStudents.ucsd.edu. We have a great Instagram and Facebook account. Please do follow us on social media. We have great giveaways and ways to engage with you. So please do follow us. Our handles are here. Please do download the UC San Diego mobile app. We will push notifications to you if there are important announcements that may be important for you to be aware of as it impacts your immigration status. So please do download the app. And lastly, we send out weekly iStudents newsletters for you to be aware of some things you need to do during specific weeks in the quarter to maintain your status. So please do check out those weekly updates and things to note from ISPO. So we've actually reached the end of our session here. And I see that there are tons of questions in the Q&A tool. And my colleagues, Laura, Shelley, looks like Karina and Grace have answered most of those. But go ahead, and we have some time today. Go ahead and input any questions that you might still have in the questions and answers tool. Okay, a couple of questions here. Let's see. How can I edit my current address on my Triton link? It's a great question. So if you go to tritonlink.ucsd.edu, you will see a section for addresses. And I can ask one of my colleagues to input ISPO's website link regarding address updates. But it's quite simple, and there is a way for you to update your current address in the US, your foreign address abroad or permanent address, and also emergency contact information. If we ever need to reach somebody on your behalf, it's important that that information is there. Okay, I have a question here. If I have trouble accessing my Form I-94, what should I do? So a great way to reach out to our office is a very helpful link, and I'll ask my colleagues to input it here. It's icontact.ucsd.edu. But you can reach our advising team through Zoom, and you can share your screen, and we can help you to navigate how to access that I-94. And if there are issues with it, we can always figure out next steps. Thank you, Grace, for inputting that link. So please do look at the iContact website for ways to connect with our advisors. Okay, I see a lot of questions about employment and how to get an SSN, what types of jobs our work authorization is required. This is a plug to please do attend our working in the US orientation sessions. They do go over applying for an SSN and on-campus and off-campus employment more in depth, and I think that'll be beneficial for you all. This is a live webinar, and we are currently recording. Recordings will be available shortly after the session. And my colleagues can input that link so that you all have it for future reference. A great question here. What is a travel signature? So on the second page of your Form I-20 and on the bottom right hand of your Form DS 2019 for our J1 students, you will see a travel endorsement section. Every time a ISPO staff member issues you an updated document and signs that document will be valid for use to exit and enter the US for up to 1 year during your program of study. So essentially, if I give you an updated I-20 today with a travel signature of September 7th of 2022, you can use that document if no changes have been made to enter the US up until next year of September 7th, 2023. So it's valid for up to 1 year to exit and enter the US. Okay. Our iTravel website, itravel.ucsd.edu, does go into travel signatures extensively and how to apply for a new one if you need one. Many of you might have very specific questions that are case specific to you and your situation. Please do come and talk to our advising team. What we'll do is we'll pull up your specific immigration record and we'll get to know you a little bit better and answer those questions directly. So please do visit icontact.ucsd.edu and we can meet with you and talk more with you then.
Pauline, there's a few
Sure.
questions about getting a social security number if they don't have a job.
Ah, okay. So in order to apply for a social security number, as an F-1 student, you will need employment, either on-campus employment or authorization for off-campus employment through CPT or OPT. Those are required in order to apply for a social security number. And again, our SSN, applying for an SSN and eligibility is covered a bit more in depth in our working in the US session, so please do register for those. A good question here, do we get a new travel signature every year if we're staying in the US? So no, you don't need a new travel signature unless you're planning to exit and re-enter the US. You don't need to get one every year, only if you're planning to travel internationally.
Where will be the recorded session be, Pauline?
Yes, in the link here, I think Grace has shared it. It is, there it is again, iWebinars.ucsd.edu.
Will they receive a new I-20 once their CVIS record is activated?
It's a great question, Shelley. So actually, no. We have thousands of students who are submitting check-ins around this time of the year. And so while we activate them, we will change your iPortal request status to complete, no document issued. By receiving that email confirmation that we have completed your check-in request, you will know that your record has been activated. And since there are no changes to be made to your major or any other information on your Form I-20 or DS 2019, you will not be receiving an updated one. Great question, Shelley. Thank you. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Let's see. Okay.
If they aren't able to access their I-94, what should they do?
Oh, yes. So it might be an individual case, as I mentioned earlier. Go ahead and come to Zoom advising or drop in to our office. Our front desk is open. You can go to icontact.ucsd.edu to learn about different ways to connect with us. And we can take a look at your immigration documents together then. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for those great questions. Again, if you didn't get your questions answered today, please do visit icontact.ucsd.edu, attend our Zoom advising sessions. We're happy to meet with you and chat with you more then. Okay, Laura, I'll go ahead and I'll pass it back to you.
Great, thank you so much, Pauline. A lot of wonderful, important, and useful information. I will add one more thing. I did put a link for the I-94 information into the chat box, so you can also access it there if you would like to try that first. And then we have a few more items before we all go. So first is about meetups. They're a great way to meet other international students at UC San Diego. We're offering 2 different kinds of meetups, interest-based and regional. To register for meetups, head to iorientation.ucsd.com/meetup. And then if you'd like to know what's happening at UCSD all year long, our iEvents calendar is a live calendar that features globally engaged events hosted by student organizations and campus departments throughout the year. Take a look at iEvents.ucsd.edu for all the latest info. And then before we say goodbye, a few reminders. Please continue to register for other orientation sessions by visiting iorientation.ucsd.edu. Stay up to date by visiting iupdates.ucsd.edu and by checking your UC San Diego email for weekly ISPO newsletters. We know you get a lot of mail, but please read our newsletter. We have a lot of very useful information and important information. And you can always contact ISPO at icontact.ucsd.edu and also follow us on social media. And now we'd like you to take a moment to scan the QR code that everybody has been asking about. It is on your screen right now. You'll be able to take the survey for this session. This is how we verify your attendance at this workshop. You'll also receive a post-session email tomorrow with the survey link reminding you to fill it out. So if you happen to miss it today, that's okay. Any questions, please email iprograms@ucsd.edu. And thank you all for attending today's session. Again, whether you're joining us from inside of the US or from outside of the US on the other side of the world, on behalf of our International Students and Programs Office here at UCSD, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, evening, or morning. We look forward to seeing you on campus this fall.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great quarter.